Hi everyone, it's Darby with rejoiceandcreate.com, and yes, this is a second video this week. For Christmas 2017, I'm going to try to put out 2 videos every week as I count down to Christmas. But today I'd like to show you this card. Now, it's not the standard size card, but it is a very useful size card. This card is actually 3 7/8 inches wide by 9 1/4 inches long, and that's specifically to fit in a number 10 business size envelope. So here in the United States, this will mail with 1 postage stamp, 1 standard first class postage stamp, and yes, it will fit in there. There we go. So it fits into a business size envelope. Now you can make your own, or you can buy these. You can buy a lot of prettier colored ones from the office supply store or even from Walmart if you don't wish to make your own. But another useful advantage of this size card is that I know a lot of people who like to send a Christmas newsletter, or they like to send pictures of their kids from the fall season at school, and this card has a pocket inside where you can tuck those in. Now, if you're careful when you glue the top and the bottom, if you use the tear and tape and have a 1/4 inch adhesion, and the tear and tape is still very strong, you can actually fit a newsletter in there on a standard size of copy paper. And for us, that's 8 1/2 by 11. And if you carefully fold it in the 3 ways, it will actually fit into that pocket. But you can also fit pictures or money or even gift certificates. All right, so let me show you what I used to make it with. I started with a base of Old Olive, and it measures 9 1/4 by 8 1/2. Now, if you're international, you can still do this. At 8 1/2, this gives me a 3/4 inch tab. Yours will just simply be a little bit narrower. I believe your width is a 1/4 inch less than ours is at 8 1/4, so you'll still have plenty of tab to glue your pocket onto. So the length is 9 1/4 again. The Soft Sky mat is 9 inches by 3 1/2 inches. The Snowy Hills, I started with a piece of Whisper White that was 3 1/2 inches wide and 6 inches long, and I'll show you how to cut that into the hills. For the inside, my inside pocket piece was actually 9 1/4 inches long because I wanted it to be the entire width of the envelope so I could tuck the 8 1/2 inch newsletter in there. So this is 9 1/4 inches long by 2 1/2 inches wide. And for the Snowy Hills on that one, I have a piece of Whisper White that is 2 1/2 inches wide by about 3 inches long. And I'll show you how I cut the hills on that one, very similar to the front. Now the only last thing I measured was for the banner. And for the Soft Sky piece, it was 3 1/2 inches long by 3/8 of an inch wide. And for the white behind it, it was 4 inches long by 1/2 an inch wide. Now for the rest of the pieces, instead of telling you what size scraps I used, I'll just show you what I cut out because there were a lot of pieces. From Old Olive, I cut out 3 of the trees. Now I also cut out 3 trees out of the Whisper White because I thought by backing it on there, it would make it look like they had snowy covered boughs on them. For the little deer, I used a piece of soft suede. For the bow, I used a little piece of cherry cobbler. And for this wreath, I stamped Old Olive onto Whisper White, but for the one I'm demonstrating today, I just cut a wreath out of Old Olive. And lastly, I thought it needed a little bit up in the sky, so I went and looked for some snowflakes. And as you see in the Santa's Sleigh Framelits dies, there are actually no snowflakes. So I looked through my catalog and I saw that in the seasonal tags framelits, there actually were some snowflakes, and those are the ones I used. I cut 4 of the small ones and 2 of the larger ones. But if you don't have that one, but you do have the seasonal layers thinlits, there are also a couple of different size snowflakes in there. And you could use the medium and the small one there as well. Alright, so let's put this together. The first thing we're going to do is to score our card base. Now I have the 8 1/2 side up, and if you are international, just have that 8 1/4, I believe, side up, and have the 9 1/4 side down. So it should be a vertical orientation like portrait. So with your shorter side up, score the first score at 3 7/8, and move it over to the 7 3/4 and score. Alright, so let's go ahead and fold and burnish our score lines. Okay, before I go any further, I'm going to go ahead and put my ribbon on. So the card will be like this. That's the inside part for the pocket, and it'll be like this. So this is the front of my card. And on the front of my card, about halfway up, and this is about 9 1/4, so maybe a little bit more than 4 1/2, I'm going to make a little mark just so I know where to put my ribbon. And that mark will be covered underneath the mat. And I'll square this up with my grid paper so I kind of get the ribbon even across. And I'm going to take a strip of fast fuse right across there. I have a piece of old olive that's probably about, let's see, maybe 26 to 28 inches long. So I'll fold it in half so I know where the halfway point is, and I'll hold that on my left thumb because that's going to go right on the fold line for my card. And keeping my ribbon untwisted, I'll just go ahead and match it up to that line I made and try to get it straight across the grid paper here. Now on this side, because we don't have a mat on the back, I'm simply going to use a glue dot. I folded the grid in half because the 1/8 of an inch ribbon is a bit narrower than a regular width glue dot, and this will just keep it from flopping around when they untie it. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is to put on our mat. So I have the piece of soft sky that is 9 inches long by 3 1/2 inches wide. And I like to use Tombow, or you can use Fast Fuse, or pretty much any adhesive, but I like it to stick together because I make these ahead of time and they'll be sitting for a while and I don't want them to start popping open before I'm ready to send them. But go ahead and center that on your card. So let's go ahead and build up our front. The first thing I'm going to do is make our snowy hills, and I have a piece of Whisper White, and as you can see, I did this in 1, 2, 3 different drifts of snow, and the first one maybe is about 2, 2 1/2 inches wide, and then I just cut the second 2 from there. And these are all cut freehand, and I'll leave that there so you can see how I'm doing this. But for my first snowdrift, I kind of just made a slopey hill, so let me go ahead and just make a slopey hill. And that's my first snowdrift. And then my second snowdrift, I had a little bit more of a, I don't know, swivel. So I kind of went down first and then went up. And then that's going to be tucked under there. And then for my third one, I actually just went a different direction. So let me go ahead and go up on this side and kind of curve it under on that side. Now to make them stand out a little bit more, I used some of the soft sky and I sponged the edges all the way around. So now you can see the edges of where my snowdrifts go, so let's go ahead and adhere those down. And the way I like to adhere them down is I actually would adhere this one down first just by putting the Fast Fuse on the bottom of it, because I didn't know if I wanted to tuck things in, and I actually ended up tucking a tree into the top. Okay, so it was only covered on the bottom. Now this next layer, I just ran Fast Fuse right along the bottom layer of that too in a curve. And I kind of tucked it right under there to where I wanted it. Same with the next layer. So next I wanted to make my trees, and I'll make all 3 trees at one time. And how I did that was I just put the back of my tree I just ran a little bit of Tombow glue down. I actually completely cut off the trunk of the white ones because it was easier to make sure it was covered. And just below, I lined this one up, but just like a little bit down. So all you could see was the white snowy on top of the green. And to me, that looks like snow-covered branches. And I did that for all three of them. Now, to give them just a little bit of a sparkle, I don't know if you can see that on there, a little bit of sparkle, I actually used a little Wink of Stella on it. Okay, so I covered all three with Wink of Stella. While these dry, let's go ahead and get our little reindeer ready. And I just used a little bit of the soft suede marker to color his antlers and his hooves. Alright, so that's ready. Now I've seen some of the demonstrators do this already, and most recently Connie Stewart, so I went ahead and popped the little wreath around his neck. And all you do is just carefully put it over his antlers and head and just kind of pop it over his nose. And what I'll do is just put a tiny bit of any adhesive just to hold it there for a moment. Right there. And use a glue dot for the bow at the base of the wreath. Alright, so let me go ahead and take this out of the way, and we're going to assemble the front of our card. Oh, before I assemble my trees, I also use the soft suede marker to make the trunks look a bit more brown. Alright, so what I did is I tucked it in where I liked it, and I think I had this one about there. And this one I tucked into between the layers about there. I think that looks pretty neat. And that way I knew where to put my little guy. And I went ahead and adhered him with some glue dots. And I put some glue dots on the top parts of him, but then I went ahead and put a little bit of Tombow on his legs and up in his antlers. And put him right down there. He looks so handsome. Alright, so now I knew where I wanted the reindeer. I went ahead and put some fast fuse on the back of the trees. Just one strip up there and tucked it right back in under my layer. There we go. And same with this one. Alright, so there we go. Now let's stamp our Merry Christmas. And if you see on the Santa's sleigh, it actually says Merry Christmas Wishes. But it's very easy just to stamp part of it. Let me get the cherry cobbler up. And all I did, certainly you could mask it with a Post-it or something like that. All I did was I just hung what I didn't want over the edge and then stamped it right in the middle. Oops. There we go. And then I went ahead and flagged the edges. And how I put it together is I put a strip of fast fuse on the back of this one and adhered it to the center of the white. And then I kind of curled it up in the middle and out. You're going to mail this, so you don't want it too dimensional, but I did want a little bit of dimension showing. So I put a mini dimensional right in the center just to keep it up a little bit in the mail. Then I used just a little bit of fast fuse right where the ends of the ribbon would be. And I centered it right on the top. Okay, and as I said, my My sky looked like it needed a little bit of snow, so I went ahead and cut the snowflakes out, and I just adhered them with glue dots. And our front is done. So let's move on to the inside. All right, now I'm going to actually layer my card snowy banks first, and then I'm going to round 2 corners. On this one I used the Pretty Label Punch to do that, but it's hard to get a consistent result. You're certainly welcome to try. I was a little bit off on one of them. So this time I'm just going to round it with a circle punch. So let me show you the snowbanks on these, and I'm going to do it very similar way. First I'm going up and down. And on the second one, I'm going to go down a little bit and up. Again, we'll go ahead and use some soft sky ink to ink around the edges. Makes our snowbanks pop out. And we're going to adhere them the same way. Oh, actually, before I adhere this one, and I do this sometimes, I'm going to go ahead and stamp my image. And I'll use the cherry cobbler for that as well. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and adhere the bottom half of that, because I like having the top half for when I tuck in the tree. And that gives me a little snowbank. Now, as I said, I wanted to round the corners a little bit, so I went ahead and got myself a 1.25" punch, because I wanted a little bit bigger round. And I just tuck this into where the cardstock will go normally, but from inside the punch. And that gives me kind of a nice rounded corner. Now this one has a couple layers on it, so just go ahead and go slowly. And it rounded that one as well. Now, when I put this one on to here, onto the tab, let me move this card out of the way. I like to adhere the edge of this as well as the edge of this, and that way they hold together and they stick. All right, so line this up probably about 1/8 of an inch away from the score line, and make sure you're on the top and the bottom. And go ahead and stick it down. Now, if I was a little tiny bit off there, I'd just go ahead and trim it to make it look neater. All right. And how I make my pocket is I'll just put a strip of the tear and tape on each side of this from the score line to where the curve starts. And I'll go ahead and put some fast fuse along the tree as well, just on the inside. All right, and then we'll go ahead and tuck them in. And stand them right up. And I'll go ahead and put my snowflakes on here as well. All right, and that's the inside. So that's our project today, a Merry Christmas card for newsletters, gift certificates, and much more. Subscribe if you want to see all the videos that I'll be putting out this Christmas season. And if you need more information about this project or any of the other projects I've done, please go to rejoiceandcreate.com. And as always, until we meet again, I hope your days are blessed. Bye!